So in this update, the engineer tower has been rebalanced. So firstly, we'll start off with the price changes. At level 1, the upgrade cost has decreased from 350 to 325. At level 2, the upgrade price has decreased from 1,000 to 900. Meanwhile, at level 4, this has decreased from 7,500 to 6,250. Now, in terms of damage, the damage at level 2 has increased from 8 to 10. At level 3, from 20 to 24. At level 4, from 25 to 30. And at level 5, from 75 to 80. And at level 6, from 85 to 90. In addition to this, at level 4 for the engineer tower, the range has increased from 20 to 21, and at level 5 from 20 to 21. No changes to the range at level 6. Meanwhile, for the rifle sentry, its fire rate has actually decreased from 0.18 to 0.17, as you can see here. But the developers have not fixed the issue where the sentries use their internal name though. Meanwhile, at level 4 and level 5, where the engineer spawns in minigunner sentries, the range for the minigunner sentry has increased from 20 to 22. And finally, at level 6, the explosive damage from the war machine sentry has increased from 70 to 75. In addition to this, a lot of the units for the engineer tower have gotten much stronger. Previously, for example, the war machine sentry would have 300 health, and now it has 1000 health, meaning that sentries from the engineer tower are able to resist damage from, say, enemies much better. These are abilities because obviously the enemies cannot collide with the sentries. Overall, that means that the engineer tower has actually been buffed. There have been no nerfs to the engineer tower, so it's slightly better now than it was previously. I guess, again, in anticipation for the hardcore update. So if you were using the engineer tower previously as a jack-of-all-trades tower, then the engineer tower is now even better. So, in this update, the Swarmer Tower has been rebalanced, except it hasn't really, because the only thing that's changed about the Swarmer Tower is apparently a bug fix with the Swarmer Tower at level 5, where previously it would only deal 3B damage towards, say, this brute here. And in this update, apparently the developers have bug fixed it, so now it deals 4 damage towards this brute in terms of B damage. However, from the looks of things, that doesn't appear to be the case. Let's see here. Yeah, you can see this brute here. It's going up in increments of 3. It's now 9, it's 12, then it's 15. That doesn't make any sense. Now, this doesn't make any sense unless the developers have not fixed the Swarmer Tower at max level. And from the looks of things, it doesn't look like they've actually fixed the max level Swarmer Tower. It still only deals 3B damage, when its upgrade suggests that it should deal 4. As you can see, this is the level 5 statistics for the Swarmer Tower. Here it says 4 damage, when that's not actually the case. It increments in 3, not 4. So, yeah, the developers are wrong on this. So, no change to the Swarmer Tower. Actually, I think I might have found an issue with the Swarmer Tower. So, if I were to get the brute back up here and use this Swarmer Tower on this, it's now incrementing in up to 4, yeah. So you see it goes 24, then 28, then 32. So that seems fine and dandy. But then if I get this Swarmer Tower here, this Swarmer Tower now also increments in watts. So it goes 4, and at level 3 for this Swarmer Tower here, it's only meant to increment in steps of 3. However, you can see from the damage being provided to the brute here, it's actually incremented in groups of 4. So what the hell is going on with the Swarmer Tower? Well, I think actually the B damage that comes from any Swarmer Tower depends on what the first sting of that tower is on the enemy. Now, in this example here, I purposely made it so the first sting comes from a level 5 Swarmer, where the B damage is 4. And it looks like this applies to all Swarmer Towers. Whenever a Swarmer shoots at an enemy, it will always increment in groups of 4, even if the B damage is 3. However, if I were to reverse the roles, and then if I were to spawn in another brute, which doesn't have defense, and let this level 4 Swarmer attack this brute first, which increments in 3, then I think this level 5 Swarmer will only increment in 3, as you can see here. So, it really does depend on which level your Swarmer is at, which means that's the only way to effectively use level 5 is so all of the swarmers are at level 5. If you were to have some at level 4 and some at level 5, then the level 5 swarmers, they're effectively null and void in terms of their damage, purely because a level 4 swarmer, if it gets a shot on an enemy first, will mean that all B damage towards the enemy will be set to 3 rather than the 4 that the level 5 swarmer is at. So the developers, they've seemingly patched a bug, sort of. It's still very glitchy, the Swarmer Tower, and in fact reminds me of the old glitches of the Swarmer Tower, where you could actually infinitely stack a lot of bee stings if they desynced all of the swarmers if they were at different levels. Whereas this, it negatively affects the tower if a level 4 or under swarmer gets a first hit on an enemy, but it positively affects the Swarmer Tower if that hit is first from a level 5 swarmer, and then all of the level 4 or below swarmer towers were to apply B damage towards that enemy. So, I mean, with this glitch, technically speaking, you can kind of abuse it by having, say, a level 5 swarmer at the very start of the game set to, I don't know, random, for example, and then all of these swarmers behind it, they were set to, like, level 4, for example. It's a very cheap, effective way of boosting the B damage of all of these swarmers here, which are meant to be level 4, by 33%. Again, it's only a 33% boost in DPS, so I'm not sure if it's too big of a deal, so people will start abusing it in, say, hardcore mode, but it is a glitch that you can technically abuse. So, you didn't hear it from me. And developers, if you're watching this video, you also did not hear this from me. So, in this update, the Firework Technician has been changed. In fact, in this update, it's been slightly rebalanced. I say rebalanced, most of the changes to the Firework Technician actually are positive. However, there is one exception to this rule. But first, we'll start with the positives. And the first thing is the fact that the Shotgunner has been buffed with the Firework Technician. Previously, with the Firework Technician, the Shotgunner Tower had a chance very similar to other towers in Tower Defense Simulator of generating a firework, except it was divided by 13. So the Shotgunner was 13 times less likely to generate a firework from the Firework Technician. The reason for this is because previously the Shotgunner would shoot out 13 pellets, whereas now it actually shoots out 9. So actually, the Shotgunner Tower has a significantly lower chance of generating a firework in comparison to other towers in Tower Defense Simulator. Now, in this update log, they mention that this has changed so that the chance of generating a firework from the Shotgunner Tower has increased. Although, that being said, the developers haven't clarified on what this percentage chance is. And looking from what this Shotgunner is actually dealing to this brute, I'm not seeing a firework being generated. I don't know if this is a fault with the Shotgunner Tower. Oh no, it's generated a firework now, even though it's only generated like 1 over that period of time. In addition to this, they have modified the Soldier Tower as well in this update. Previously, the Soldier Tower would have a very similar chance of generating a firework, much like any other tower, except it was divided by 2. So the Soldier Tower would have half the chance of generating a firework in comparison to, say, the Scout. However, in this update, the chance of the Soldier generating a firework has now increased. The developers haven't clarified on what the increase is, whether it's the same as other towers or if it's only a 1.5 times decrease, but apparently it has decreased. So, you know, we're going to take their word for it. However, as suspected in this update, the chance of generating a firework from the Saboteur Tower has decreased. Now, much like the changes to the Shotgunner and the Soldier, we actually don't know what this decrease is. If it's anything to go by, then maybe it's based on the bullet count that the Saboteur Tower has, 6, so maybe it's divided by 6, or maybe it's divided by even more, given the fact that there is a scatter shot ability which increases the amount of damage, or the amount of pellets more realistically, that the Saboteur Tower can deal by 3. So 6 times 3 is 18. Maybe they've decreased the chance of generating a firework from the Saboteur Tower by 18. Who knows? For all we know, apparently it's decreased, although I don't really see much difference. The Saboteur Tower towards these 3 brutes can still deal a lot of firework damage. And then in general, there's been range buffs actually to the Firework Technician. This is actually good because previously the Firework Technician would have, I would say, a pretty small range. So at level 0, the range has increased from 8 to 10. At level 1, it's the same. At level 2 and level 3, it's increased from 9 to 11. And at level 4, it's increased from 10 to 12. Obviously, I have skills enabled, so this isn't totally accurate from what you're seeing, but it does mean that the Firework Technician can now affect more towers, which I think is pretty good. So yeah, overall, positive changes to the Firework Technician, especially with the Shotgunner Tower and the Soldier Tower. I wonder if Golden Soldier plus Firework Technician is going to be a strat people use now. But the Saboteur Tower plus Firework Technician, it's now weaker. I wouldn't say it's significantly weaker, and you can certainly get some abilities out of the Saboteur and Firework Technician combo, but it's not as good as it was before, if the developers are to be believed. So, in this update, the Saboteur Tower has been rebalanced. In fact, some changes have been made to lead detection and its ability. So we'll start off with lead detection. Previously, it used to have it at level 2, and now it has it at level 0. This, I think, perhaps links to a potential hardcore update change. So I'm not sure if, say, the Saboteur Tower will be very good against lead enemies very early on in the new hardcore update, but we should see. In addition to this, the ability cooldown for the Saboteur Tower has changed. Previously, it was 60 seconds. However, if you place it down, it is now 30 seconds. And the ability cooldown between uses for the same Saboteur Tower has changed. Previously, it was 120 seconds, and now it is 100 seconds. With skills, this has decreased down to 87. Now, given the fact that the neuralize duration is 9 seconds, and you can have up to 8 Saboteur Towers, 8 times 9 is 72, so there is about a 16-second window where an enemy may not be neuralized if you were to have max skills enabled, which would decrease the ability cooldown for the Saboteur Tower from 100 seconds down to 88 seconds. It's not too much of a big deal if you were to have multiple Saboteur Towers placed down, the maximum of 8, but it is a good ability change if you only have a limited amount of Saboteur Towers that you can place down because of the placement limit. In addition to this, the developers have actually updated the prices of some upgrades. So at level 1, it's changed from 550 down to 500. At level 2, the poison length has increased actually from 4 seconds to 5 seconds. At level 3, the upgrade price has decreased from 5,150 to 4,850, and the poison length has increased from 5.5 to 6. And finally, at level 4, there's the changes to the ability that I mentioned, but also the amount of damage that the Saboteur Tower has increased because the bullet count has increased from 5 to 6, which is surprising because it now means that the Saboteur Tower has a greater DPS at level 4. Previously, the DPS for the Saboteur Tower was 173.06 at level 4, and now it is 204.17, and the cost efficiency has decreased from 132.12 to 110.28. So yeah, very interesting that they buffed the Saboteur Tower at level 4. And because of the price changes at level 1, 2 and 3, it means that there have been cost efficiency changes even though the DPS hasn't changed all too much. In fact, it's not changed at all. So previously at level 1, the cost efficiency was 103.12 and now it is 98.53. The cost efficiency at level 2 was 101.44, now it is 99.49. And the cost efficiency at level 3 was 115.31, and now it's 110.1. So overall, actually, Saboteur Tower has been buffed. Now, it's worth a mention that with the Firework Technician, it has been nerfed, but I think overall, it is a good change to the Saboteur Tower. Certainly, I think it makes it slightly even more meta than it was previously. I know a lot of people were using it purely for its early game potential, but now it has slightly better late game potential, especially with the 104.17 DPS that it has now. Plus, the fact that it is now cheaper as well, so that's pretty cool. In this update, the developers have reworked the Crook boss and the Golden Crook boss. However, the only thing that they've changed actually are to the units, and in fact, it's a not positive change. It is a nerf to the Golden Crook boss and the regular Crook boss, and it's the fact that the units, more specifically the pistol goons, they are no longer able to detect hidden enemies. So this pistol goon here, as you can see here, it doesn't have hidden detection anymore. However, the Tommy goons, they are able to detect hidden enemies. Now, this doesn't mean that hidden enemies cannot collide with these pistol goons. They are still able to collide with these enemies. It's just that the pistol goons, they are unable to actually damage it. The Tommy goons, they are actually able to damage it as well from a range. So that still remains the same. It's just the pistol goons, they are unable to actually detect it and shoot at it. The pistol goons, however, they are actually able to detect flying enemies still. So at least that hasn't changed. And it looks like the Tommy goons are also able to still detect flying enemies. And while in this example, I'm only showing off the golden pistol goons, the regular pistol goons are also unable to detect hidden enemies. So if I were to get a possessed armor with hidden, yes, these Tommy goons, they would be able to actually collide with it and also deal damage to it. But the pistol goons, they would be unable to do anything towards it if it was hidden. So spawning in this shadow boss here, these pistol goons just walk straight into the shadow boss without stopping, unlike the Tommy goon, which can stop and damage this shadow boss. Now I assume these changes were made with hardcore mode in mind, and I assume the developers thought that the hidden detection from the Crook boss was slightly too OP, namely the golden Crook boss, because after all, the golden Crook boss can detect hidden enemies from level 2. So I guess having units from level 0 that can also detect hidden enemies was seen as unnecessary and a little bit too OP, so they removed it. So in this update, the developers have modified the Harvester Tower. In fact, it's been an outright nerf to the Harvester Tower. However, with that being said, it is just to one feature of the Harvester Tower, and it's not its DPS. The thing that's changed about the Harvester Tower is the fact that its Thorn's slowness ability has changed. Previously, the Harvester Tower would have better thorns to slow down enemies, but this is no longer the case. So at level 0 and level 1, the thorns slowdown has decreased from 20% to just 15%. At level 2, this is decreased from 25% to 20%, and the same can be said for level 3 and level 4. At these levels, it used to be 25% and now it's 20%. Meanwhile, at level 5, the thorn slowness has decreased from 40% to just 30%. So if I were to place down the thorns ability here, this brute is now only slowed down by 30%, as opposed to the 40% that was experienced previously. Now, I will say that this also applies to the farm, because the farm is actually linked to the Harvester Tower itself. So if I were to place down a Harvester Tower here, and the additional thorns that come out of the farm, they have been nerfed as well, but only for slowness. No other statistics for the Harvester has changed. The thorns damage, I think, has remained the same, and the DPS from the Harvester itself has also remained the same. The synergy with the farm, even though it's changed its slowness, it's not changed anything else. So the only thing that has changed is the slowness effects. And quite honestly, I'm not sure if anyone was using the Harvester purely for its slowness effects. I think many people have forgotten that the Harvester Tower can actually slow down enemies. When you refer to towers that can slow down stuff, the things that come to mind include the Freezer Tower, and more recently the Saboteur Tower, not necessarily the Harvester Tower. And I think perhaps these changes were made so that you couldn't combine the Harvester Tower with the Freezer Tower, with the Saboteur Tower, with the new Slime Trooper Tower in Tower Defense Simulator, and then permanently slow down enemies to the point where they could stall for quite a long time. With that being said, these changes aren't too bad. I mean, even the biggest change is at level 5, and it's decreased from 40% to just 30%. And do bear in mind that the Harvester Tower does have limited thorns, so it's not like you're going to abuse this ability for quite a long period of time. But yes, it is a nerf to the Harvester Tower overall, even if it's a nerf that most people probably wouldn't care about. Now, in 2026, the Ace Pilot received some reworks and some changes that many people weren't too impressed about. However, in this update, the developers have reworked it once more. The first thing to note is that the Ace Pilot now grants hidden detection to other towers at level 4. Previously, it was at level 5. Now, I think that the change to level 5 previously at the start of 2026 was probably in anticipation for a hardcore update, which may have a lot of hidden enemies. However, this was very unpopular with the community, so this has changed back to level 4 as it was previously, where the Ace Pilot now also gets hidden detection. I mean, it did get hidden detection before this update, but it now grants hidden detection to towers as well. However, for this, the prices have changed for each level. So at level 4, it used to be 2,500, but this is now increased to 3,000. So the total cost has increased from 5,350 to 5,850. But at max level, the upgrade cost has decreased from 9,500 to 7,000. So actually, it's now quite cheap to actually max out. Previously, it used to be 14,850, and now it is a cheap price of 12,850. In addition to this, the damage for level 3, level 4, and level 5 has increased. So at level 3, it's increased from 4 to 5. At level 4, it's increased from 6 to 8. And at level 5, it's increased from 15 to 18. The fire rates have also changed for level 3, 4, and 5. Previously, they were 0.1, and now they are 0.12. So I think overall the DPS has slightly increased, but not a major increase as one might expect due to damage changes. In addition to this, the hidden boost radius for the Ace Pilot has increased. So previously it was 7 at level 5, it is now 10 at both level 4 and level 5. And finally, at level 5 for the Ace Pilot, the explosion radius has increased. Previously it was 3.5 and now it is 4. So when it comes to the Ace Pilot between level 0 and level 2, there are no changes to DPS nor to the cost efficiency. But starting from level 3, the DPS has increased from 39.5 to 40.83, and the cost efficiency has changed from 72.15 to 69.8. Meanwhile, at level 4, the DPS has increased from 63 to 68.33, and the cost efficiency has gone from 84.92 to 85.61. And finally, at level 5, the DPS has actually remained the same, 150, even though the fire rate and the damage has changed. But the cost efficiency has decreased from 99 to 85.67. So overall, these are positive changes to the Ace Pilot, even if they aren't major, and these changes are only made towards the later levels of the Ace Pilot, which I think the developers thought were slightly too weak.